Hello friends, many of you must be preparing for the examination which is coming forth, and firstly thank you so much for the love and the share which you have shown, which I could see it through the likes, through the views, to the subscription to my channel. Thank you so much, and this has encouraged me to come up with this one fantastic video which will help all the people who are writing examination to write the examination in a better way and get those extra marks, which would be very crucial and sometimes could be a thin line of difference between you failing and you passing the examination, right? So this session is dedicated for all those people who are writing examination in some time, and this session will deal with what are the tips what are the things we should keep in mind while we write examination, how we can do our performance better, and that's where the entire video is going to focus. So let's get up for some of the tips to prepare for to know how to approach the examination. Now this is coming from me, and this is not copied from anywhere or something. It's out of my personal experience as a student, as well as a teacher, and as well as an evaluator of various answer sheets. So this is coming out of experience. I have scored ranks in CA, Chartered Accountancy, have got All India ranks in Company Secretary course. So let's look into some of the crucial important points which we should keep in mind when we go for examination, right? Tip number 1, don't reach exam hall on time. Reach exam hall before time. Make sure you avoid all those people who are in panic mode in and around the exam hall, and drink a lot of water before the exam, and also make sure you visit a washroom before you start your exam, right? Tip number 2, carry everything which you would need in the exam hall. It could be your admit card, it could be your ID card, it could be a calculator, it could be any book which is required. All those things, make sure you carry it. Of course, do not forget a water bottle, right? Tip number 3, read the question paper very carefully. Once you get the question paper in your hand, read the entire question paper once, flip through the entire question paper once. Try to understand which are the questions which you will be able to answer with ease, which are the questions which you are at average, and which are the questions you would try to attempt it at the end of the session, right? Tip number 4, time management. Yes, it's the most important thing in the entire examination, and that is managing your time. Managing your time at macro level as well as at micro level. When I say macro level, basically I mean to say, suppose you have 6 questions and you get 3 hours of time to answer them. Probably you can have some benchmark. Let's say maybe 50% of the paper you will be completing it in within 1.5 hours, or maybe 2 questions each hour. So that kind of benchmark you need to set and make sure you are tracking that benchmark. Every hour 2 questions, or maybe 50% of the paper should be completed within 50% of the time. This kind of time management is definitely required. Not only that, time management at micro level, that is basically at each question. Now each question you should not spend too much of time. Sometimes when we get stuck, we try to spend a lot of time into that question. We should not do that. That will ruin the entire prospect of us getting good marks. So make sure you do not spend much time in each question. Now suppose if you get 100 marks and the time allotted is, let's say, 3 hours, so that basically works out to be somewhere around 1.5 minute, approximately 100 seconds or 1.5 minute for each mark. So let's say you have a question of 10 marks, you should be spending somewhere around 15 to 18 minutes in answering them. Suppose you say, let's say you have 4 marks of question, so 4 marks means per mark 1.5 minutes, 1.5 minutes. if the entire weightage of the paper is 100 marks and the time allotted is 3 hours, so that roughly works out to be 1 minute. 1 mark is equal to 1.5 minutes, right? So suppose if you have a question of 4 marks, you should be spending somewhere around 6 minutes, right? So 6 to 7 minutes to answer a question of 4 marks, right? So this kind of time management is very, very important in examination. Each question, as well as every hour, every hour, or maybe 50% of the time, you just need to check whether the entire paper will be achievable, will be doable, right? So this is our tip number 4, time management, which is very, very crucial. Tip number 5, do not be tempted. Suppose you have a question A and a question B. Now question A, you have prepared well, it's been a favorite area of yours, and you are tempted to attempt question A. At the same time, you have question B, which you are not that prepared, which you were a little fearful of. You have that question B. Now, sometimes we be tempted that because we have prepared well, because that's a favorite area of ours, we will go for question A. But sometimes we end up getting into a mess, getting stuck in that particular question, right? So be very, very careful and do not be tempted in going in for all the areas which you have prepared at home. Because whatever you have prepared, whichever area you are focusing on, those questions might be there, but you might not be able to answer them very comfortably. So rather than putting your time, energy into the question which you have prepared, but in the examination, the question which you have got, you're not able to answer. Rather than that, you go for question B, which you are less prepared, but still you'll be able to score an average marks out of that, right? Tip number 6, do not get stuck. Many a times you will have a question wherein there might be part A, part B and part C or part D. There might be various parts. Some of the questions you will be able to answer it, and some of the questions in that, some of the part of the question you will not be able to, right? So then in such a situation, you should not panic. Please answer those parts of the questions which you are aware. Please answer them. The part of the questions which you are not aware, you can probably leave some space so that if time is left out, we can come back and try to redo it. And when you come back and try to redo it, the chances that you will get it is more, because this has been experimented also. Once you move out of that particular thinking and then come back again and rethink, probably you'll get the answer, right? So do not get stuck in any particular part of the question. If you do not know, just leave it, just try, and if you're still not getting it, just leave it and move to the next question. Here I would like to also say one more thing. When you have question number 1 consisting of, let's say, part A, part B, part C, you have question number 2 consisting of part A, part B, part C. In this kind of question paper patterns, you will have to answer question number 1, all the parts at the same place. You may start with question number 2. If you start with question number 2, answer question number 2, A, B, C in one at a time, and not that you have answered 1A and then question number 2B and then 1C. You should not do that. Once you start a question, all its subparts needs to be answered one by one. And if you're not able to answer it, you can leave space and then move on, right? So don't mess up the entire question's subparts. There's no rule that you need to start question number 1, 2 and 3. There's no such rule. But once you start a question, make sure all its subparts are at one place only. This will make the life of examiner simple, and he would appreciate your effort and he might give you more marks, right? Next step is structuring your answer. When you answer, make sure your answer is well structured, well thought out. It should not be, you should not write the answer as to whatever you know. It's not that you should write everything what you know. Please read the question and try to answer only what they have asked. The structure of the answer could be introduction, which could be a very short and sweet. You should not discuss detail in introduction. Introduction should be kept small, short and sweet, and then the main body of the answer, and then probably the third part, and which would be conclusion. Conclusion should be along with the reasons. You should not just conclude and put a full stop. You should give the reason for your conclusion, right? So a well-structured answer will definitely give you good marks in your examination. Also, make sure at the end of the answer you write down all the notes, all the assumptions, and in the exam, in the answer also, make sure all your calculation steps are being clearly shown to the examiner, right? So that is very important. This one particular area is very important, structuring your answer with introduction, body, and the conclusion, reason, and then notes, and then assumptions. And if you have alternative answer or alternative way also, you can make a mention of that so that you will not be losing marks on that. And also make sure your answer consists of all the calculations, all the steps, right? So this will give you more marks. Also, in your answer, please try to use bullet points wherever possible. The charts, the graphs, the diagrams, the examples, and whenever you have a question which asks you to distinguish between two things, you can probably use a table. All this will also add value to the answer, and you will get more marks compared to an average mark, right? Now suppose you're in a situation where there's only 10 minutes left and you have 2 questions to answer. What are you going to do? Very limited time you have. Somehow you have ended up not having sufficient time because you were a little slow in your earlier questions. So in such a situation where you have a very, very less time and more questions to answer, what are you going to do? Yes, the answer is very simple. Suppose you have 2 questions and you are left with only, let's say, 5 minutes. Only 5 minutes you are left with, right? In such a situation, what you should do is, you should answer question 1 a little bit, and then question number 2 also little bit. Question number 1 little bit, leave space. Question number 2 little bit, leave space, so that by chance if you end up having some extra minutes, you can complete the answer of both the questions, right? So this is because when you answer question 1 and question 2, there are 2 questions suppose you have, and you have only 5 minutes. When you have question number 1 which you have answered partially, and you have question number 2 which you have answered partially, the probability that you will get more marks, the probability that you will get more marks is high, because generally the answers, the beginning of the answer, the first part of the answer will fetch more marks than the concluding part of the answer, right? So that is the logic why I'm saying when you have limited time and you have to answer 2 questions, you will answer both the question partially. That will increase the marks which you will get. That will add on to some extra marks which you would get otherwise you wouldn't be getting, right? So these are all small things, but these things will matter a lot. The next step is, do not leave the exam before time. Once you're into the exam hall, the 3 hours which you have, or whatsoever time which you have, this is an important resource and you will use it up to the last minute. In my entire academic career, I have never left an exam hall even 1 minute before. Suppose if I end up getting some spare time, suppose if I end up writing all my answers before time, I have 15 minutes, 20 minutes time with me. I should go back and check everything which I have written. I should make sure all my answers are correctly written. I should also try to add more value to my answer by drawing lines, by drawing graph, by giving some more examples, by maybe making sure that all your calculations are right. So this extra time which you have, by chance if you have any extra time, make sure you utilize it to add value to all your answers, to make sure your answers are correct, to make sure you have numbered them very carefully, you have written them carefully, make sure you have answered all the questions in the question paper. Sometimes we end up with answering only some questions, and we any one or two question might get completely skipped from our mind. So any 10, 15, 20 minutes extra which you have at the end of the entire session, make sure you don't leave the exam hall before, and spend time there in the exam hall revisiting your answers, proofreading your answer, adding value to your answer, calculations you need to check, write down the assumptions, write down any missing part of your answer. Make sure you get maximum marks out of all your answers, right? So this is simple, this is a very little thing, but this will go a long way in getting you high marks in your examination. I'm sure this video was useful to you, and if so, please do not forget to like, share and subscribe to my YouTube channel. My next video is going to be released only when this video touches 2000 views. So a humble request, please like, share and subscribe to my channel. Until then, saying you a goodbye, this is CA Rahul Ranka.